Iranian air defenses have shot down an American MQ-9 Reaper drone near Hormozgan Province, a direct kinetic engagement at one of the world's most critical maritime choke points, just miles from the Strait of Hormuz. According to the open-source Middle East monitoring channel, Middle East Spectator, Iranian air defenses intercepted and destroyed a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone operating near Hormozgan Province on Iran's southern coast. This remains single-sourced and unconfirmed by official U.S. or Iranian government statements at this time. If verified, it would constitute a direct kinetic engagement between Iranian and American military assets in one of the most strategically sensitive corridors on the planet, the approaches to the Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly one-fifth of global oil supply transits daily. The timing is notable given parallel U.S. drone force restructuring in the region, which we cover in the next segment. U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, has announced the creation of Task Force Falcon Strike, a multinational strike drone unit operating across air, surface, and underwater domains. According to Telegram Channel 2 Majors, U.S. military personnel and regional allied staff will operate single-use strike drone systems, with formal invitations already extended to Middle Eastern partner nations. As partners join, the task force is expected to scale into what CENTCOM describes as a unified, multi-domain, multinational deterrent. 2 Majors frames this as a structural cost reduction strategy. Washington is attempting to partially replace expensive assets such as carrier strike groups and forward air bases with cheaper, scalable drone firepower integrated under a single allied command architecture. The announcement comes on the same day as the reported Reaper shootdown, creating an immediate tension between the new drone-forward strategy and the demonstrated vulnerability of unmanned platforms. On August 13th, Russian forces continued expanding their declared buffer zones in Ukraine's Kharkiv and Sumy regions, according to reporting from Telegram Channel 2 Majors. In Sumy district alone, Russian assault units reportedly advanced more than 300 meters across 19 separate directions. In the Vovchansk area of Kharkiv Oblast, advances of over 400 meters were reported across 7 directions. Fighting is ongoing near Kozacha Lopan, Vovchansk, Pasarivka, and numerous other settlements. 2 Majors also reports that a Ukrainian National Guard assault group attempting to break through toward Russian positions between Ternova and Rubyazhne was repelled, with drone strikes accounting for most of the reported casualties. Separately, Ukrainian UAV depots in Chernihiv region were reported destroyed. These figures originate from a Russian-aligned source and cannot be independently verified. Ukraine's security service, the SBU, claims its drones have struck 240 energy facilities across Russia between July 1st and August 13th. Though 2 Majors notes these statistics likely include repeated and unsuccessful strikes and may be inflated for Western audiences. The most significant recent strike caused a complete power blackout in Sevastopol, Crimea. 2 Majors reports that Ukrainian drones are now operating at higher altitudes to evade small arms fire, including during transit flights toward Russia's Krasnodar region. Russia is deploying new counter-drone technical systems to Crimea, though the same source notes some of these solutions are described as immature or supplied in insufficient quantities, leaving air defense observation posts as the final line of defense in some areas. Fuel supply on the peninsula has partially stabilized despite the ongoing blockade attempt. Saudi Arabia has formally announced the activation of a 13-nation Red Sea Maritime Defense Alliance, according to Al Jazeera. The coalition is framed as a collective response to persistent Houthi maritime threats and broader regional instability along one of the world's busiest commercial shipping corridors. Al Jazeera raises questions about the alliance's operational credibility, noting divergent interests among member states. The announcement is notable in the context of CENTCOM's simultaneous unveiling of Task Force Falcon Strike. Taken together, both moves suggest a deliberate effort to build layered, lower-cost deterrence architectures in the Middle East, relying more heavily on partners rather than direct U.S. force projection. The U.S. administration has published a report accusing more than 40 countries of facilitating Chinese goods being rerouted and relabeled to circumvent American import tariffs, a practice described as shadow transshipment. According to reporting by Telegram channel InfoDef Italy, citing the Financial Times, The list of accused countries includes allies and partners such as Mexico, Canada, European Union member states, India, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, and Brazil. U.S. authorities estimate that roughly $75 billion in Chinese goods were diverted through third countries between February 2025 and February 2026, resulting in uncollected tariff revenue of between $19 and $34 billion. Washington is developing an artificial intelligence-based tool called Detective Border to identify discrepancies in shipping data and is threatening a 40% tariff on rerouted goods, as well as criminal prosecution for deliberate evasion. A ProPublica investigation, cited by Telegram channel Intel Slava, reveals that a General Dynamics artillery shell manufacturing plant funded with over $500 million in U.S. government money, intended to supply Ukraine, had produced 0 usable shells as of July 2026. The U.S. military, which finances the facility, ordered the shutdown of 2 of its 3 production lines last August. The third line continued operating but failed to produce deliverable ammunition. This represents a significant failure in the Western effort to rapidly scale up artillery shell industrial capacity at a critical phase of the Ukraine conflict. Intel Slava attributes the findings directly to the ProPublica reporting. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has publicly accused India of illegally suspending the Indus Waters Treaty and issued a formal red line warning, according to Al Jazeera. The treaty, which has governed water sharing between the two countries for decades, was suspended by India following earlier bilateral tensions. Al Jazeera covered the statement as a significant diplomatic escalation between 2 nuclear-armed states. No military movements have been reported in connection with this statement, but the framing of a red line by a nuclear power over a foundational resource-sharing agreement elevates the risk of miscalculation. Armenia's Anti-Corruption Committee has arrested 4 employees of Gazprom Armenia and 1 state official on bribery charges related to gas connection permits, according to Rybar analysis. Rybar frames this as part of a broader, deliberate campaign by Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's government against Russian strategic capital in Armenia, following earlier pressure on Russian-linked electricity and railway companies. Rybar assesses that the arrests are designed to create initial reputational damage around the Gazprom Armenia asset, laying groundwork for future reassessment of its operating status. The channel notes that while Armenian authorities recently extended Gazprom Armenia's license to operate the country's largest power plant unit through 2027, the legal pressure signals a longer-term intent to reduce Russian economic influence in the South Caucasus. 2 lower-tier incidents emerged from the Levant. First, a Lebanese local telegram channel, Bint Jbeil News, reported that an artillery shell struck the outskirts of Far Shuba in southern Lebanon, an area that has seen periodic cross-border fire. No casualty figures were provided, and no attribution was made for the origin of the shell. Second, the same channel reported that Israeli military forces are demolishing civilian homes in the Bani Hayan area. No further operational details were included. Both incidents remain single-sourced and unverified, but they underscore ongoing fragility along the Lebanon-Israel border and continued Israeli military activity in the West Bank. Strategic assessment. First, the economic picture. The unconfirmed shoot-down of a U.S. Reaper drone near the Strait of Hormuz is the single highest-risk economic event in this digest. Even unverified, such incidents have historically caused immediate oil price spikes, as roughly 1/5 of global oil supply transits this choke point daily. Simultaneously, the U.S. tariff evasion report targeting over 40 nations, with estimated uncollected revenue of $19 to $34 billion according to the Financial Times, risks triggering retaliatory trade measures from allies and partners across multiple blocs. The ProPublica finding on the failed General Dynamics shell plant also signals broader questions about the efficiency of Western defense industrial spending at scale. On political stability, the Reaper incident, if confirmed, will generate immediate domestic pressure on the U.S. administration to respond, while simultaneously testing whether CENTCOM's newly announced Task Force Falcon Strike has deterrent credibility before it is even operational. In Armenia, Rybar assesses that Pashinyan's government is engaged in a systematic phased campaign to dismantle Russian economic influence, a pivot that carries real domestic political risk given Armenia's energy dependence on Russian infrastructure. Pakistan's Red Line Declaration over the Indus Waters Treaty signals that Prime Minister Sharif faces significant domestic pressure to take a hard public posture against India, raising the risk of miscalculation between two nuclear-armed states and the wider geopolitical consequences. Open-source analysts should watch three convergent pressure points over the next 7 to 14 days. First, whether the U.S. officially confirms or denies the Reaper shootdown, and whether any retaliatory action or diplomatic response follows. This will determine whether the Hormuz corridor moves into active escalation. Second, Saudi Arabia's 13-nation Red Sea alliance and CENTCOM's Task Force Falcon Strike, together with Washington and Riyadh, are deliberately constructing a lower-cost, partner-heavy deterrence layer across the Middle East. The operational credibility of both structures will be tested quickly. Third, on the Ukraine front, the breadth of Russian advances in Sumy and Kharkiv, combined with the ProPublica revelation that a key U.S. shell supply program has failed entirely, compresses Ukraine's ammunition buffer at a moment of sustained multi-axis offensive pressure. Watch for any U.S. emergency resupply announcements and whether the Vovchansk axis produces further territorial changes. Today's digest underscores a single strategic reality. The United States is simultaneously managing a potential kinetic escalation with Iran, a failed ammunition industrial program for Ukraine, and a sweeping trade confrontation with both rivals and allies, all while restructuring its Middle East force posture around unproven drone architecture. If you want this level of open-source analysis delivered clearly and without hype, consider subscribing so you never miss a brief. This brief is based on publicly available open-source information and is for educational and analytical purposes only.